Welcome back to Game Talk 24/7. I'm your host, Josh Cunningham. Before we get to the video, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and like the video. It really means a lot. It really helps out the channel, and I appreciate it more than you know. Also, don't be afraid to comment down below. Without further ado, let's talk sports. Hey guys, Merry Christmas. Today is December 26th, Friday. It's the day after Christmas. I hope you guys had a great holiday and continue to have a great holiday hanging out with friends, family, and loved ones. Again, Merry Christmas. It's the day after Christmas, and you know what? It's just a little special episode. Usually we'd have 2 episodes this week on Game Talk 24/7 because it's the holidays. This is the only episode we're doing this week. But you know what? It's not even a terrible day to do it because you have some breaking news. Michigan is expected to hire Kyle Whittingham as their next head coach. Kyle Whittingham was a former coach at Utah this past season. People would say he retired, but he never retired. He stepped down. He had a successor 4 years ago planned up and lined up, and he didn't want to overstay his welcome. So he stepped down in the essence of retiring. He didn't really retire, though. He said he's willing to venture in other options in football and wanted to look at other options in football. And, well, he's about to become the next head coach of Michigan. Who knows? Maybe by the time you're watching this, he already signed the dotted lines. He already signed the paper, and he is the next head coach of Michigan. But at Utah, Kyle Whittingham's record was 177-88 as a head coach, and he was 11-6 in bowl games. And so he's a phenomenal head coach. Under Kyle Whittingham, he's had 10 All-Americans, and he's won multiple awards, including the 2008 AFCA Coach of the Year Award, the 2008 MWC Coach of the Year Award, the 2008 Paul Bear Bryant Coach of the Year Award, the 2019 Pac-12 Coach of the Year Award, and the 2021 Pac-12 Coach of the Year Award. So he's a phenomenal coach. He's a coach that if he would have left Utah sometime earlier in his career to go to a program like Michigan, for example, if other schools wanted him, he's a coach that could have maybe won a national championship at that program with the talent that he has. He's a phenomenal head coach. Michigan's got a good guy, and he's really great at building the trenches. That's kind of Kyle Whittingham's je ne sais quoi. That's what he likes to do. He likes to build the trenches, the O-line and the D-line. He starts there, and then he moves out. He also has quarterbacks that are very dynamic and runs the ball and can throw the ball. So Bryce Underwood, dynamic, run and throw. So with Kyle Whittingham, you're getting a phenomenal head coach who's been there. He's done it before. Also, you're going away from the Jim Harbaugh kind of era and coaching tree that kind of has left this bad taste in your mouth, coach after coach after coach, whether it's with Jim Harbaugh or it's the Connor Stallions debacle or it's because of the Connor Stallions debacle, you got Jesse Minter who has that taste and it gives you that bad taste in your mouth of that Jim Harbaugh era. You had Sharon Moore. And so they're moving off of that and just moving on to their whole branching out and just moving into a whole new thing. Now, what Kyle Whittingham does once he gets there with the coaching staff, who he decides to retain, who he decides to fire and then replace, that's all going to be up to him. And he could restart the whole thing from fresh, or he could keep some guys to keep some of the Michigan culture that's there, even though that culture recently has not been what you want or what you expect because of all the scandals that have been coming out. But he's a great head coach. It's a great hire. It's a great hire to get away from those scandals and to get away from all those things that you have been having problems with recently. He's a great head coach. He's a great guy. And so Kyle Whittingham, he's going to be the next head coach of Michigan. And he's expected to be, if maybe by the time you're watching this, he's already signed. But as of right now, as I'm recording this, he's expected to be signing sometime today. Signing that dotted line, becoming official. He's the next head coach at Michigan. But Kyle Whittingham is a phenomenal coach. He's going to do good in Michigan. He's going to bring this toughness that they've had. They've always had the sense of winning with toughness, winning with the run game, winning in the trenches on the defensive and offensive line. And he's going to bring that because that's what he did at Utah with all those good defenses that he had at Utah and all those good defensive and offensive lines he had at Utah. This year at Utah, Kyle Whittingham, actually, let's get that pulled up. This year at Utah, Kyle Whittingham has done a great job. Maybe not as good as he had in past years, but he had a good year. I mean, they finished as a whole with only 2 losses to BYU and Texas Tech. So they play Nebraska in their bowl game. Like I said, as a whole, they finished 10-2 with only 2 losses. One being to BYU 24-21, one being to Texas Tech 34-10. He's a solid coach. He's a solid head coach. He's a very good defensive head coach. Every single team that he's had at Utah has always had really stud defenses. They've been really good and stout defensively. They have made good moves up on the defensive front, and so you're just getting a guy who knows what he's doing on every single side of the ball. Offensive line, defense. You're getting a guy that knows how to build a program and be at a program for a while, because he was at Utah for a long time. He was at least there since the early 2000s, and so, or the mid 2000s, maybe not early, but like mid to late 2000s, and so he's been there for a while, and so because he's older, he may only be at Michigan for 5 years. But if that's a step, but if he can get you on a step in the right direction, and then you guys come in and then you guys hire another coach that's really good after him, that can help. Because what he's hired to do now is to point the program back in the right direction after this whole Sharon Moore scandal and all the Jim Harbaugh scandals and things like that. So his job is to point the program back in the correct direction, in the right direction. And then after that, you can then get someone who can really get the program running. And who knows, he can get the program running. With Michigan's talent level, like with the name that Michigan has, he can recruit better talent. He can recruit better players. And so he's also a great recruiter, especially in like West Coast. So he can recruit better talent. He can recruit better players. And so with that being said, now that he's at Michigan with a bigger name than Utah, he can now recruit Michigan, Ohio, maybe a little bit more East Coast, maybe a little bit more South, and the West Coast, which he was always able to recruit. And he's going to do something at Michigan that this year was not done, and that's going to be win in the trenches. And I mean, they did it this year, but not as effectively this year as they did in past years. But I mean, he's going to rebuild something that just got broken and crumbled to the ground. He's going to fix it. He's going to build it back up. It's like Bob the Builder. Can he fix it? Kyle Whittingham can. He can fix it. It's like Thomas the Choo Choo Train. I think I can. Well, Kyle Whittingham knows he can. He doesn't think he can. He knows he can fix what happened in Michigan, what just happened in Michigan, and build them back into the program that they should be. And so, again, he was at Utah for 21 seasons. So he's old. I'm not going to call him old because I'm not going to be disrespectful to him, but he's older. And so how long will he be at Michigan for? Maybe it's only 5 years. Maybe he decides to continue coaching for 10 years. It all depends. But you know what? He's a guy that can build Michigan back up, keep players like Bryce Underwood and Jordan Marshall there. And then he's also a guy that can, with the talent level that Michigan can acquire, maybe win a national championship at Michigan. He's a phenomenal head coach. That's a great hire for Michigan. Kyle Whittingham is a great coach. Again, his record is 177 wins and 88 losses at Utah and 11-6 in bowl games. So he's a phenomenal head coach. Another thing that happened this past 10-ish days since the last video record, Legend Bey is finally committed and signed to Ohio State. So on early signing day, Legend Bey, who's a running back / athlete in the class of 2026, Legend Bey was going to sign to Ohio State, but because he wasn't 18, his mom had to sign his letter of intent, and she wouldn't let him. She forced him to sign with Tennessee. And later on, it became a whole big debacle, and it became a whole big thing. And later on, he requested for his release from his letter of intent to Tennessee. They granted him that release, and so then he was no longer signed to Tennessee, and he said he was going to sign to Ohio State when he turned 18. And well, he didn't have to wait till he turned 18. He signed with Ohio State, I think 2 or 3 days before, almost before his 18th birthday. Maybe not 2 or 3 days before, maybe a couple days before, but he definitely signed before his 18th birthday to Ohio State. And well, Legend Bey has all the potential to be a really good player. He's fast as all get out. I mean, he runs a 10-23 100-meter dash, which is phenomenal. I mean, just think Tyreek Hill, he's fast. He ran, I think his best was a 10.15 100-meter dash. So he's about 0.08 of a second off of Tyreek Hill's fastest 100-meter dash time. And Tyreek Hill's fast. He's called the Cheetah. He's fast. He's known for that. Legend Bey's only 17, now 18, because he turned 18 on Christmas Eve, running a 10.23 100-meter dash. That is phenomenal. And so he's a fast individual. He's got talent. Now it's all about just getting him into a college program, getting him into weight room, having him put on some muscle, and getting him faster. and then teaching him that how in college, teaching him how to have good vision, how to find gaps, how to find the holes, and then make a man miss. Because in college, the difference between college and high school is in high school, if you got speed like he does and you're as fast as he does, most people won't tackle you. But when you get to college, they can tackle, and they can tackle you, and you gotta make one man miss if you want to hit that big run. But you also gotta have good vision, and you gotta find the holes. And so he's going to Ohio State to develop. But now, since we're here, we're gonna also talk about the first round of the college football playoffs that we just had. We're not gonna discuss the quarterfinals just yet, because that's going to be coming on Tuesday when we get back to our normal programming and scheduling the day before New Year's Eve. We're going to discuss all the quarterfinal matchups and what we think might happen in those games there. But we are going to discuss what just happened in the first round leading us into next week. Alabama. So this was, again, this past Saturday. And so, again, Alabama, past Saturday and Friday, actually, is Alabama playing on Friday. Alabama and Oklahoma. Oklahoma started off hot. They went up 17-0. Everyone thought Alabama was dead. They said, and Oklahoma was saying, "Well, yeah, you're dead. So we're gonna go take a nap. We're gonna take a lunch break." They came back from that lunch break, and Alabama scored 27 unanswered points to take the lead 27-17. Alabama said, "You know that like viral meme, call an ambulance, but not for me." Well, they told Oklahoma to call an ambulance, but not for them, because, again, they scored 27 straight. They took the lead 27-17, and then Oklahoma fights back. They score another touchdown, 27-24. Then Oklahoma gives up another touchdown, and it is 34-24. Alabama wins, down 17 at 17-0 early on in the second quarter. And then just that whole the final, the end of that second quarter, and or the middle and the end of that second quarter, and then the final two quarters, the third and fourth quarter, Alabama just took over. They just took over and dominated. I mean, Oklahoma tried to stump a mud hole through Alabama's chest, and Alabama said, "Hey, how you doing? We're still standing here." And then they stomped the mud hole through their chest, scoring 27 unanswered points, and then going on a run of 34-7 total. And that's the game right there, basically. That run that was right there. And it all comes down to who dominated the trenches. Early in the game, Oklahoma dominated the trenches. And they were getting to the quarterback. They were getting pressure on Ty Simpson. Their O-line was holding up for John Mateer. But then as the game went on, Alabama's defensive line was getting to John Mateer, and their offensive line was holding up, blocking, not letting Oklahoma get the pressure on the quarterback. And wow, what a game. It also, you want to look at turnovers. John Mateer didn't throw a single interception in this game. I mean, not John Mateer. Ty Simpson didn't throw a single interception in this game. John Mateer threw an interception that was also a terrible interception, for instance. I mean, he read the defense. He went to go make the throw, and I'm not gonna lie, he threw it straight to the defender. He threw it. Now I get it. The defense is they're gonna hide their scheme. They're going to disguise it. But even then, after the post snap, he snapped the ball, caught it, and instantly threw it. Didn't even look, and he threw it right to the defender. The receiver wasn't even there. Right to the defender, and that was his interception, which also ended up being in a pick six, which started kind of almost led to this scoring run that Alabama went on. But that wasn't what started it. What started it was a 4th and 2 in the red zone, down 17-0. We got to get some points. Hey, coach, just kick a 3. We need points. Kalen DeBoer says, no. We've been aggressive all year. We're going to do that again. And he gets it in for 7 on the back of Daniel Hill. They couldn't tackle him. They couldn't bring him down. Daniel Hill just was stomping towards the end zone, spinning off of people, letting people touch him, and he's just saying, "You're coming with me, Chief." He put him on like a backpack, and he went to the end zone for that touchdown, which really turned the momentum and the tide of this game in Alabama's favor. Because then again, later on, you get John Mateer in that same quarter throwing the pick 6 straight to Alabama. Then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they get the Oklahoma punts. Alabama gets the ball. They score quickly, and it's 17-17 going into halftime, and it's a brand new game coming out of half. Who's going to win that second half? Well, it's Alabama, because they're going to score 17 points in the second half, and Oklahoma's only going to score 7. Ty Simpson threw for 232 yards, 2 touchdowns. He went 18 of 29. John Mateer threw for 307 yards, going 26 of 41, and 2 touchdowns with that 1 interception. Then on the run game, Alabama can't run the ball. I mean, it's been a thing all season. They averaged as a team 1.1 yards a carry, rushing for 28 total yards on 25 carries. Daniel had 9 carries, 43 yards, a 4.8 average, so his average was good, but no one else on the team could really run the ball, and he had 1 touchdown. But even then, his 43 yards weren't amazing, but they still couldn't run the ball, but neither could Oklahoma. Oklahoma had 55 rushing yards on 33 carries, a 1.7 average, and also 1 rushing touchdown by none other than star quarterback John Mateer, who had 19 carries, 15 yards. His average was terrible. His yards were terrible. Now, it also doesn't help that sack yards in college apply to rush yards, but even then, not great. But then you have Torrey Blaylock with 11 carries, 36 yards, a 3.3 average. Not great. Both teams struggled to run the ball. Man, like I said, sometimes English is hard. Both teams struggled to run the ball. But I think that's because both teams also, A, were never great running the ball throughout the season, and B, both teams have stud defenses. Both teams have solid defensive lines and secondaries and a solid front 7 on each defensive side of the ball to where they make it hard for their opponent to run the ball, especially Oklahoma. And so when you look at that, with both teams not being able to run the ball in general throughout the regular season, then going against 2 really good defenses, two solid defenses, your run game might struggle a little bit. As a whole, though, it came down to the passing game. And while Oklahoma threw for more yards, they also threw for 1 more turnover, which was that pick. And so, with that being said, that pick 6 came to be costly because it turned the tide of momentum and then forced Oklahoma into a corner that they could not box out of. See, when Oklahoma got in that corner, they started to look like Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. They couldn't do anything, and all of a sudden Alabama knocked them out, just like Anthony Joshua knocked out Jake Paul. And so you look at it and you say, okay, well, how is Alabama going to do against Indiana? Again, we'll talk about that next Tuesday, but that could be a really good game where Indiana could wipe the floor with them. We'll find out. But no, Alabama, the receivers, Latsier Brooks had 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Horton, 65 yards, 0 touchdowns. Jeremy Bernard only had 40 yards. Josh Cuevas had 35. Ryan Williams had 5. And Jay Lindsey had 8. So when your best receiver, Jeremy Bernard, only had 40 yards, and you still won the game, that's pretty solid because other people stepped up. I mean, Jeremy Bernard had a phenomenal catch late in the game over number 19 for Oklahoma, where he straight up almost basically mossed number 19 of Oklahoma's defense. That was a phenomenal catch, and that also kind of helped swing momentum into Alabama's favor. Oklahoma was led by Deion Burks, who had 107 yards, 1 touchdown. Jermichael Carter, who had 46 yards. Giovanni Gibson, 41. Torrey Blaylock, who had 36. Jaron Kanik, 22. And then Isaiah, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. He only had 17 yards and 1 touchdown. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name because, well, that is an interesting last name. Alabama's defense had a total of 5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. Oklahoma had 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. So again, near that second quarter, the tide changed from in the trenches. Alabama's offensive line stepped up and defensive line stepped up. And Oklahoma's offensive defensive line, who was dominating early in that game in the first quarter and halfway probably through the second quarter, started to fall off a little bit. And, well, Alabama took advantage of that. And so, again, Alabama beats Oklahoma 34-24 in a revenge game. It's really hard to beat the same team twice in one season in college football. It's not impossible. It can happen. But it's very hard. And so, well, Oklahoma didn't beat Alabama twice in the one season. Alabama said, hey, we're getting a lick back. We're coming back, and we're coming back strong. And they came back strong. They got healthy. And they're going to be even healthier probably against Indiana because all they need was time. And now that they've got even more time, they're going to continue to get healthier. And a healthy Alabama team can be a dangerous Alabama team. Now let's go to Miami versus Texas A&M. Now, that game, I couldn't fault you if you fell asleep during it. That game was slightly boring offensively. I mean, the final score was Miami winning 10-2-3 against Texas A&M on the road. Who would have thought Alabama beat Oklahoma on the road and Miami beat Texas A&M on the road? So 2 teams won on the road this year when none did it last year. Who would have thought? Now, I thought Miami was going to win, but I also thought Oklahoma was going to win. I didn't think Alabama would be as healthy or be able to turn the tide after the 17-0 deficit in the first place. But other than that, no. Miami won 10-3 in what was kind of a snooze fest offensively. I mean, the first touchdown of the game wasn't scored till 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So 2 minutes left in the game. It was 3-3 till 2 minutes left in the game. Now, that's credit to both defenses. Both teams have phenomenal defenses, especially Miami's front seven. They have a phenomenal defensive line, especially at the edge rusher position. Miami had a total of 7 sacks and 9 tackles for loss, with Akeem Messidor with 1.5 sacks and Ruben Bain Jr. with 3. And then you had Keontae Scott with 2. And Jacoby Thomas with half a sack. They are studs up front, especially their 2 edge rushers, Akeem Messidor and Ruben Bain Jr. You can line them up almost anywhere, especially Akeem Messidor. You can put him at D-tackle, you can put him at edge. He's going to get to the quarterback. Ruben Bain, you can put him on either side. You got to know where he's at all times, because if you don't and you don't block him, he's going to get to the quarterback and he's going to make his presence known, and he's going to lay the hurt on the quarterback. Texas A&M, who was thought to have a better defensive line going to this game, or at least a better one to an extent, they relatively weren't as successful. They had 2 sacks and 6 tackles for loss. 1 sack coming from Dalton Brooks and another sack coming from Tyler Onedum. I don't know how to say his last name. Probably butchered it. But he had 2 sacks. He had 1 sack, and Dalton Brooks had 1 sack. And then, again, as a total, they had 6 tackles for loss. But you know what? You got to give credit to Miami's offensive line, and especially the right tackle, Francis Maui-Noah. Francis Maui-Noah is a phenomenal right tackle. He's going to be a first-round draft pick in this year's draft class. So will probably Akeem Messidor and Ruben Bain. Ruben Bain is projected to be a top 10 pick, and Akeem Messidor will also probably be a first-round draft pick in this year's NFL draft. And so, again, what a game. What a game defensively, as I said. It was 10-3, so offense wasn't really doing a whole lot. Let's just start with the losing team, Texas A&M. Marcel Reed threw for 2 interceptions. When you're throwing 2 interceptions, what are you going to do? Most of the time, lose games. In this instance, they lost the game. He threw for 237 yards, went 25-39 with a 6.1 average, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Ran the ball. A&M could only run for 89 yards. 15 carries by Marcel Reed, 27 yards, a 1.8 average. And then Ruben Owens, the second, had 7 carries, 21 yards, 3 average. Le'Veon Moss, 7 carries, 15 yards, a 2.1 average. Again, their average was 2.5 yards a carry as a team as a whole. That's not great, and that's not a recipe to winning. That's not a recipe to success. That's a recipe to hot trash offensively, like we just saw in that game. But that also goes both ways. Carson Beck went 14-20 for 103 yards, 1 touchdown with a 5.2 average. He didn't turn the ball over one bit, but they couldn't gain first downs. As a rushing unit, they had 175 yards, 28 carries, 6.3 average. Great. All on the back of Mark Fletcher, though. Mark Fletcher Jr., who is a phenomenal running back, who carried them rushing-wise. Out of their 175 yards, he had 172 of them. He had 17 carries for 172 yards and a 10.1 average. Phenomenal. With a long of 56. So, again, they could move the ball on the ground. When you look at it as a whole, they had a total of 278 yards, whereas Texas A&M had over 300 yards total offensively. So both teams struggled to move the ball offensively. Miami struggled to move the ball through the air, especially with the winds that were down there. They struggled to move the ball through the air. Texas A&M struggled to move the ball on the ground, especially through Miami's front seven. So one team struggled to move the ball through the air, one team struggled on the ground, and one wasn't dominant through the air, the other one was dominant on the ground. Miami was very dominant on the ground, especially, again, Mark Fletcher, who had 172 yards and 17 carries with a 10.1 average. He was phenomenal. And then also you have that 1 passing touchdown to Malachi Toney for a long of 12 and only to 22 yards. Keelan Marion had 33 yards. C.J. Daniels had 29 yards for Miami. And then you look over at Texas A&M, you have Mario Craver with 92 yards, Ashton Bethel-Roman with 44, Nate Borkirker with 33, Casey Concepcion with 33, Terry Boosie with 13, and you're just like, okay, what also kind of boned down in this game? Well, it was the turnovers. Marcel Reed threw an interception on the final drive of the game. They're in the red zone. They need this touchdown to win the game. They're like 5 yards from the end zone. touchdown to tie the game, not win it. I mean, they could win with a 2-point conversion, but to at least tie the game. He throws the ball completely behind the receiver to the DB for an interception. He threw it a little late, which is why it was behind the receiver to the DB. If he would have thrown it on time, it would have been a touchdown, and this game may have ended differently. But that happened. Also, both teams had some missed kicks. Miami's field goal kicking game, they went 1 for 4, 25%, with a long of 21. That's not great, but it's also helpful when Texas A&M goes 1 for 2 in their field goal attempts with a long of 35. With the winds out there, kicking was very hard and difficult with the winds out there for that game. It was atrocious, kicking-wise, offensively. I guess kind of sums up the game as a whole. Not great offensively, tough game offensively, slightly atrocious, you could say, offensively by both teams. But also, again, give credit to both defenses. Both defenses did phenomenal. Can Miami be that anemic against Ohio State if they want to win? Again, we'll talk about that in our next video on Tuesday. But no, Miami did their job. They went into a tough environment in Kyle Fieldhouse in College Station at Texas A&M, and they won 10-3. Now they got to go play another tough team, a team that's better than Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl. Again, also in Texas. Now, this is a neutral site. I expect Ohio State to have more fans than Miami. But again, we'll talk about that game next Tuesday. But that could be a really good game. But no, Miami beats Texas A&M 10-3 on the back of Mark Fletcher Jr. rushing for 175 yards and a 10.1 average. And then their defensive line, Akeem Asador and Ruben Mays Jr. and everybody else involved in that front seven that showed up like a brick wall going against a piece of paper. Basically, I mean, they literally showed up like a brick wall going against a piece of paper. Miami's offensive line, piece of paper, who was supposed to be really good. They're a piece of paper. And, Texas A&M's offensive line, they're a piece of paper. Supposed to be one of the best offensive lines. And, Miami's defensive line, they're a brick wall. Texas A&M couldn't run through them. And then also, they were a bullet train that ran through Texas A&M's offensive line. They were a bullet train that ran through Texas A&M's brick wall and got to the quarterback. And so, again, led by Miami and their defensive line, their front seven, and Mark Fletcher Jr., Miami wins and gets a good win to move on in the playoffs. Then you got Oregon versus JMU. Oregon wins 51-34. The game was written at halftime. I mean, it was a score of 34-6 at halftime. Game's basically over at that point. I mean, you still got the whole 2 other quarters, but let's be real. Oregon's going to take out some of their starters eventually. They're going to give them some rest, and you're going to see JMU fight back all of a sudden because, well, who's out there for Oregon defensively? Not their best players because they're giving them a little bit of a break. But they won 51-34 after being up at halftime 34-6. So you could say the second half performance wasn't great for Oregon. But again, I don't want to hear about the second half performance when Oregon, do you see where they were playing on the field? They didn't have the stars on the field the whole second half. And so credit to JMU for fighting the whole way through the whistle. Credit for that. Through the end of the game, through the clock hitting 0. Credit to that. But they also just got, like I said, served up to Oregon on a golden platter. I mean, they were cut up, cooked on a skillet or in a griddle. Some nice, juicy steaks, prime rib, cooked well, beautifully, and served up to Oregon. And, Oregon had some JMU steaks and kebabs and prime rib for their Christmas holidays with how they dominated JMU. Dante Moore threw for 4 touchdowns. He also threw 2 interceptions. He went 19-27. Then on the ground, Oregon rushed for 2 touchdowns. You had Jordan Davison, 90 yards on 10 carries, 0 touchdowns. Dyer Hill Jr., 6 carries, 76 yards, 1 touchdown. Noah Whittingham, 4 carries, 24 yards, 0 touchdowns. Then you also have Dante Moore getting a rushing touchdown with 1 carry of 5 yards. And then at James Madison, you have Alonzo Barnett III throwing for 273 yards, 2 touchdowns. And so again, it was just a dominant performance by Oregon the whole game. I mean, I was watching this while at a sports bar. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, they get another one. And another one. It's like that DJ Khaled meme, another one. Another one. They were getting another one, and another one, and another one. And it's 34-6 at halftime. And again, they got JMU served up on a gold platter for them. I mean, they were having JMU hors d'oeuvres. They were having JMU fragua. that day. And, well, I feel bad for JMU, but they were having some JMU stew. And JMU also had, they had Wayne Knight, who had 110 yards on the ground with 17 carries. Alonzo Barnett, the third, who had 12 carries, 45 yards, 1 touchdown. And Lakota Dupree with a touchdown, 2 carries and 18 yards. And then let's just look at the receiving stats for Oregon, who didn't have Evan Stewart in this game, but he might be coming back for their next game against Texas Tech in the quarterfinals. But Malik Benson had 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jeremiah McClellan, 83 yards, 1 touchdown. Jamari Johnson, 1 touchdown, 41 yards. Dyer Hill Jr., 40 yards. Kenyon Sadiq, 19 yards. Noah Whittington, 12. JMU, you have Nick DeGenerino with 90 yards, 1 touchdown. Then you have Landon Ellis with 83 yards. You have Braden Wisolowski with 52. George Pettaway with 37 and a touchdown. And again, the game was just controlled by Oregon. They just dominated. Oregon had 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. JMU had 0 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Again, it was just dominated by Oregon, and it was kind of unfair to put JMU in this position. JMU wanted to be in this position. They wanted to see the big boys table. And when they got that, Oregon kicked them right off the big boys table. They said, or JMU said, I want to be at the big boys table. And Oregon said, go back home where you belong. That's kind of what happened. And well, JMU fought to the end of the whistle, 100% respect. And it was a blood splattering, though, this past weekend of JMU and Tulane losing to Ole Miss and Oregon. And now this past weekend. And so they dominated. You want to talk about Tulane Ole Miss? 41-10. What was the score of the first game? 45-10. What happened this game? Same thing, except Ole Miss scored 4 less points. Whoa. And it's not like Tulane couldn't move the ball. They just couldn't score. I mean, Jake Retzloff threw for 306 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, going 20-35. Trinidad Chambliss threw for 282 yards, 1 touchdown, going 23-29. They have Austin Simmons for Ole Miss, going 4-5, 64 yards, 0 touchdowns. And it's just like, okay, Ole Miss, it's not like Tulane couldn't move the ball, but they could not score. They couldn't put the ball in the end zone. On the ground, they had 115 total rush yards, 15 carries, and 84 yards for Jabari McClure with a 5.6 average. No touchdowns, though. Jake Retzloff, 11 carries, 24 yards. No touchdowns. As a team, they averaged 3.4 yards a carry, which is not bad, but it's not great either. It's not really good. It's just and couldn't put the ball in the end zone. Meanwhile, Ole Miss had 4 rushing touchdowns, led by Kawan Lacey, 15 carries, 87 yards, 1 touchdown. Trinidad Chambliss, 6 carries, 36 yards. Damian Taylor, 4 carries, 25 yards. They have Logan Diggs, 4 carries, 11 yards, 1 touchdown. Trinidad Chambliss had 2 touchdowns. Kawan Lacey had 1 touchdown. And then you just go look at receiving yards. And again, it's going to be the same as passing yards, obviously. So 306 as a team for Tulane. 346 as a team for Ole Miss. Deuce Alexander for Ole Miss had 87 yards, 0 touchdowns. This Stribling, Dazon Stribling had 79 yards, 1 touchdown. And that's still a receiving touchdown for Ole Miss. But Daquan Wright, 64 yards. Devin Price, 35 yards. You have Shaz Preston of Tulane, 125 yards, but 0 touchdowns. Anthony Brown-Stevens, 57 yards, 0 touchdowns. You have Omari Hayes, 52 yards, 0 touchdowns. Justin Reed, 29 yards, 1 touchdown. What was the common denominator there? 0 touchdowns. As a whole, as a team for Tulane, they only had 1 touchdown. And so when you're going to get 1 touchdown, you're not going to win against a team like Ole Miss, especially in the College Bowl playoff. Again, it was like a splattering. I mean, it's like watching Andre the Giant go against whoever the smallest WWE wrestler of all time is. Was it Hornswoggle? And I don't know if he's a wrestler or not, but I mean, it's like doing that, and that's just not fair. That would just be unfair. Again, imagine Andre the Giant going against Hornswoggle, for example. It'd be a splattering. And that's what it was. It was 41-10. It was, again, let's see. It was 17-3 at halftime and then 41-10 at the end of the game. So, excuse me, sorry. It was just a crazy, crazy game of that people thought could be exciting. Not really, though. No one expected Tulane or JMU to win. They expected them to put up a fight. And, well, again, Tulane moved the ball. They couldn't score. Credit to Ole Miss's defense. Now you're going to get a rematch between Ole Miss, who is mad about Lane Kiffin leaving, going against Georgia. And Ole Miss only lost to Georgia the first time by 8 points. They got Charlie Weiss there calling plays. They got Pete Gold in their DC as their new head coach. Can they beat Ole Miss on a neutral site? It was Trinidad Chan his first ever career start on the road in the SEC. And first ever career road start. And it's first ever road start in the SEC too. So can they win this time instead of lose? It's going to be a neutral site. Can they win? Ole Miss had a total of 2 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. Tulane had 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. So John Summerall, he said, you know what? It was a great game. It was a great time being at Tulane. Now it's time to go get my job done in Florida and go compete to win an SEC championship and a national championship in Florida. And it's here real soon. And Pete Gold said, you know what? We're going to start off the golden era at Ole Miss just right. Just right. He said, you know, we're not going to let Lane Kiffin damper and put the mood down on our little parade, our little party. We're going to get going just right. And that's exactly what they did. Now, again, they got to go against Georgia. Can Pete Golden go 2-0 in his first 2 games as a head coach? Or will he crash and burn? That's the real question here. And that we'll find out again when they play Georgia. Again, this upcoming week, got Miami versus Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl on New Year's Eve at 7:30. They have Oregon and Texas Tech at 12 o'clock. At 12 o'clock, sorry. In the Orange Bowl on New Year's Day. Then Alabama, Indiana at 4 in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. Then Ole Miss and Georgia in the All-State Sugar Bowl at 8 on New Year's Day. Those are all going to be phenomenal games. We're going to come at you with our picks and previews of those games next week on our next video on Tuesday. And then winners of those games will go to the semifinals. And we're getting this much closer to crowning a national champion of college football. Tomorrow, Saturday, December 27th, you have Penn State and Clemson playing in a bowl game. You have Pitt and East Carolina, UConn and Army, Georgia Tech and BYU, Miami and Fresno State, North Texas, San Diego State, Virginia, Missouri, LSU, and Houston. You got to slave some possibly really good bowl games coming up tomorrow. Again, I hope you guys have a great holidays. I hope you guys had a great holidays. I hope you guys continue to have a great holidays as we're coming up on New Year's Eve. And we're still getting the vibe of Christmas, hanging out with friends and family, going to hang out with grandparents or loved ones, and just continuing this Christmas cheer that we have. I hope you guys all had a great Christmas. Merry Christmas. That was Game Talk 24/7. Thank you guys for watching.